diversity, equality, inclusion. Do these things really matter, or are they just buzzwords? Haven't we achieved equality already? Is there really enough of a difference to still be going on about all of this? These and many more are questions I hear a lot in the current equality narrative. I'm here today to tell you why they do matter, why we still need to be challenging the status quo, and why advertising is exactly the place we need to be challenging them. For example, in a 2018 study by the Unstereotype Allowance, 72% of men and women say that advertising does not reflect the world around them, and 63% don't see themselves represented in most advertising.
Just over 3/4 of us believe that advertising has the power to shape how we perceive others around us, and almost as many, 73%, find that advertising influences how they see themselves. At an advertising standards event I attended last year, CEO Guy Parker said that where possible, they take a light touch approach to advertising regulation. They prefer to put out guidance and allow advertisers to take responsibility for taking the advice on board, and only when that's not happened do they make a code or a regulation.
That's exactly what happened with gender stereotypes. In 2019, the advertising industry was still creating content using outdated and harmful gender stereotypes, to the point where the ASA felt like they had to step in. Homogeneous advertising industry leads to homogeneous media and narrow marketing that doesn't reflect society, leading to marginalised minorities that are unable to reach their potential. According to Morgan and Shanahan, cultivation theory shows that the media we consume contributes to our ideas of what the world around us should look like, what is normal. And if we don't see ourselves or our loved ones in that media landscape, we are led to believe that we are not normal, we are other, and we should change. Campaign Magazine's 2018 documentary, Hear Me Adland, found that 14% of UK ad agency employees identify as BAME, Black, Asian and minority ethnic. And for executive management positions, ethnic diversity sat at around 6.6%. For chair-level board members, white representation sat at 97.1%, and BAME at 2.9%. Less than 3% of board-level members identified as BAME. In a 2018 Select Committee on Communications, it was said that the advertising industry needs a diverse workforce that reflects demographics of the UK, including ethnicity, gender, class, and ability. Advertising must also reflect the demographics of the UK on screen. And in 2019, the Gina Davis Institute on Gender Marketing, a non-profit research body, pointed out that representation is not a proxy for equality. Ads from 2006 to 2017, reviewed by the non-profit, found that females were pretty much relegated to domestic activities such as scrubbing the tiles or preparing family meals. So yes, this is an issue that we need to talk about. We have not reached equality. It has got to a point where non-profits, government bodies, and standards agencies are still trying to get Adland to listen up. In an open letter in campaign to Adland's chief executives, managing directors and heads of talent, queer first-generation Nigerian immigrant Nwora Emenike said he knows he's not the typical Adland recruit. He started out by saying, "Now I'm on the inside, I know that the industry is dedicated to bringing in a more diverse set of people than it has in the past. I'm also very aware that it's easier said than done. There have been plenty of conference platforms telling you to make your workforce more diverse, but rather fewer explaining how to go about it. And so, for those that are committed to change but don't know how, Emenike covered a number of barriers to entering Adland for some of the UK's ethnic minorities. The barriers he cited are cost of travel. Think about subsidising travel costs, even for interviews. Use tools like video calling more effectively. Don't ask candidates to travel for interviews if you're just not sure they're right. And support flexible working practices where appropriate. Work experience. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? Well, what about supporting those who don't have connections within the industry? Unconscious bias. Difficult to tackle because it's, well, unconscious, but not impossible. It's time to actively try. Mental and emotional health. Mental health support for all employees should be advertised, promoted, and normalised with as much vigour as the quarterly away day or Christmas party. Professionalism. Problematic and antiquated notions that how you dress, speak, and even style the hair growing out of your head has an effect on how you do your job. He closed his letter with a powerful message to the industry. Enough of my words, over to you for the actions. So, how do we tackle equality? Let's start with a positive. In 2018, the Select Committee on Communications that I've previously mentioned stated that the advertising industry is better than most at taking action on diversity. They also summed up quite nicely the importance of the issue by saying, having a diverse workforce that reflects the various demographics of the UK, including ethnicity, gender, class and disability, is essential if advertisers are to better understand the consumers their clients wish to influence and with whom they need to communicate. So essentially, it comes down to whether or not you want your advertising to be effective. Alison Rose, CEO of RBS and NatWest, also stated in a Facebook Live on diversity that diverse teams just make sense. She said, diverse teams mean diverse perspectives, challenging you and preventing groupthink. That's the definition of a high-performing team. We all need to pull together to make this happen. Brands and agencies, industry governing bodies and non-profits, society as a whole, and each one of us as individuals. One company that I admire for their approach to equality in advertising is global drinks brand Diageo. In a video shared on Marketing Week for International Women's Day 2019, their CMO and one of my own personal heroes, Sil Salah, had this message to the industry.
I'm convinced that we can normalize gender equality with what we choose to show in our ads and who we choose to make them. And this is so important because what you see shapes who you believe you can be. I passionately believe equality releases both potential and opportunity in people, and therefore can make a massive difference to their lives.
Josh Graff, UK VP at LinkedIn, says, companies which attract employees who truly reflect the customers they serve will ultimately be more productive, more successful, and more adept at retaining their talent over time. So what is the solution for agencies? It's about looking at the barriers mentioned by Emanike in his open letter to the industry. It's about taking the advice from the Select Committee on Communications, such as stop unpaid, informal internships, provide mentoring, get better at doing careers advice in school, take advantage of apprenticeships. It's about not seeing the challenges and expenses, but seeing the opportunities and long-term gains. Lucky Generals is an agency leading the way in this field. Along with their 3-month internship, they provide accommodation at their flat, the barracks in Stratford, for lower socio-economic recruits. Katie Lee, CEO at Lucky Generals, said, if everyone thinks the same, comes from the same place and has the same experiences, how can we move the industry on? And how can we make great work that gets us out of our advertising bubble? We know that the industry needs to be brilliant, and we're trying to remove some of the barriers that stop that talent coming in. And what about brands? Diageo has a framework that they work to that ensures their work is a fair representation of their world. Representation is the number of women or minorities actually represented. They look at perspective, who is the storyteller, and characterization, telling people's stories, not communicating stereotypes. Mars is committed to publishing and publicising all its results because if you really want to drive change, you have to be transparent and vulnerable. It's also working with the marketing community and its agencies to instill new ways of working.
And because they say you only get what you inspect, not what you expect, Mars will be measuring and continuing to track the progress of the changes it makes. And finally, Mark Pritchard, Chief Brand Officer at Procter & Gamble, believes that brands can be tools for positive change because brands are ubiquitous. They touch people's lives every day, often multiple times a day, and for greater impact, the industry needs to step up and collaborate. For industry, this means the IPA has set diversity targets for the ad industry, aiming at seeing 40% female and 15% Black, Asian and minority ethnic representation in agency leadership roles, along with 25% of new starters coming from BAME backgrounds. Currently, the figure is less than 12% of the industry comes from a BAME background. And there are also plenty of initiatives tackling various types of inequality in the advertising industry, such as the Unstereotype Alliance, Creative Equals, Channel 4 Diversity Award, Changing Faces, Culture Heroes and Night School. But what does this mean for individuals? For you and I, it means we have to demand more from the brands that we see, the media we see. Vote with our feet and our pounds. If you have a voice, call for change, use it. Be empathetic and see things from the point of view of other people. If you do not see a role model, you must be a role model. In 2019 at WACL Gather Scotland, the first event from the Women's Network outside of London, I saw Judy Murray speak about working in the male-dominated world of international tennis coaching. Judy told a story about challenging the president of the International Coaching Federation on the lack of senior women to be role models to up-and-coming players and coaches. He responded by saying that he'd asked her to be more visible, do more talks, sit on panels, and she'd always shied away from the opportunities and turned them down. That was her light bulb moment, that if she couldn't see a role model, she had to be a role model. And that in turn was my light bulb moment. In May 2019, I launched Bloom Scotland. We're part of a UK network, and our mission is to help women in the comms and marketing industry to reach their potential, whatever that means to them. And we're tackling gender equality within the marketing industry. Procter & Gamble is the biggest consumer goods company in the world. It mainly manufactures laundry and cleaning supply products, as well as products in the cosmetics and personal care sector. The company's roots date back to the year 1837 when it was founded by William Procter and James Gamble in Cincinnati, Ohio, where the company's headquarters still remain. In 2015, the company's sales amounted to $70 billion worldwide. Procter & Gamble is also one of the biggest spenders worldwide when it comes to advertising. In 2016, the company spent over $7 billion on advertising. Every day, P&G ads reach 5 billion people all over the world. The impact they have on how we view each other, ourselves, and the world we live in, and our individual and collective place within it is vast. And to say otherwise is to say that advertising has no influence over people, rendering it useless. Remember, 3 in 4 people think advertising influences how we see each other and ourselves. So, how are they using this power? In 2016, P&G Chief Brand Officer Mark Pritchard set out the company's 3 priorities for the future of advertising. 1. To drive growth, advertising needs to be creative, engaging, and truly consumer-oriented. 2. Advertisers should aim to tackle important social issues whilst also making substantive efforts to achieve diversity within the industry itself. 3. Measurement debates and a lack of transparency are hampering progress and limit the amount of time brand custodians can dedicate to more valuable tasks. Ever since, he and his marketers have been talking about tackling and tracking diversity within their own advertising and challenging others within the industry to do the same. Pritchard is also the chairman of the Association of National Advertisers, ANA, a US trade body representing 1,000 companies in the States, that's 15,000 brands, which are, together, responsible for $250 billion in advertising and communications expenditure annually. Catherine Newby-Grant, Procter & Gamble's marketing director and hair care commercial director of Northern Europe, spoke at the Creativity and Humanity Conference hosted by Hill and Knowlton Strategy in London in September 2018. Newby Grant argues that brands must be disruptive in their communication strategy to trigger the profound change and positive perception shifts. The challenge for brands is being authentic and believable, and remaining as close as possible to the consumer's stories and needs. Newby Grant believes that brands and agencies need to make work that matters because the result is twofold. Firstly, it enables positive change for people and the planet, and secondly, it future-proofs your business. P&G is profiting from putting diversity, inclusion, and sustainable development at the heart of its brand purpose. I'd like to read an excerpt from an interview with P&G's Chief Brand Officer, Mark Pritchard, on Walk, on turning brand purpose into activism. Pritchard said, "We frankly found that sometimes the purpose can be almost too broad. It's disconnected from business. You can't let that happen. We've learned a lot about this, and in fact, what we try to do is have our brands be a force for good and a force for growth. That's specifically in the areas of what we call citizenship. We want to be good citizens. There's 5 elements of our citizenship. 1, the foundation, is ethics and responsibility. It's foundational, part of our purpose, our values, our principle. Then we focus on community impact, things like safe drinking water, disaster relief, gender equality, diversity and inclusion, and sustainability. Those are our pillars. When we do is ask each brand to think about, what is your ambition to be a force for good and a force for growth in any of those 1 areas, or more if that fits with your brand? It has to fit with the brand's core benefit and core reason for being. So take Always, the feminine hygiene brand. It's about period protection. What we're trying to do is make sure that period protection is for everyone, because that's what's going to give them the ability to do what they want to do with their lives. That's why end period poverty fits so beautifully. Because if you can't go to school because you can't afford adequate period protection, then you don't get educated, you fall behind, you don't have economic empowerment, and you don't have economic equality. So that one just fits perfectly. At the ANA Multicultural Marketing and Diversity Conference in November 2019, Pritchard spoke about achieving true cultural relevance. He said, "We are committed to accuracy and cultural relevancy in our ads, never stereotyping, never diminishing, never misappropriating, and always trying to reflect unique and relevant cultural insights." In this arena, it's not about representation. It's not about featuring a range of people in your adverts that are BAME. It's about understanding the complexities of human behaviour and showing your audience that you see them, that your product is for them, that you communicate to them in a place and time and language that they understand, and that shows that you value them enough to understand them. I want to show you 2 examples of where P&G has done just that. They're really good at hearing their customers, at reflecting their words, their lives, their realities back at their audience in a way that connects to the heart.
Who said that?
The lady at the store.
That is not a compliment.
Listen, it's an ugly, nasty word, and you are going to hear it. Nothing I can do about that. But you are not going to let that word hurt you. You hear me?
There are some people who think you don't deserve the same privileges just because of what you look like. It's not fair. It's not.
Remember, you can do anything they can. Difference is you gotta work twice as hard and be twice as smart.
Come straight home after practice. You got your ID? Yeah. Guess I stopped you. How's your review?
We're good.
You good?
Yeah,
You see?
we're good.
Okay. Good. Now, when you get pulled over,
I'm a good driver.
baby,
Don't worry.
this is not about you getting a ticket. This is about you not coming home.
I'm gonna be okay. Right?
Okay. It's not fair. But you keep showing up.
You are not pretty for a black girl. You are beautiful, period. Okay? Don't ever forget that.
Against sexual harassment.
Masculinity. Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy? What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says he's
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Not cool. Not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men, we're acting like bullshit.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
That's not how we treat each other, okay?
Okay. Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Before I launched Bloom Scotland, I was interested in finding out what sort of support women in the industry in Scotland wanted and needed. I didn't want to just push my own agenda or create a carbon copy of what was being run in London with Bloom UK. One question I wanted to answer was whether there was a need for female-only spaces. Are we just talking to each other in an echo chamber if we only speak to women? And how do we affect change on a larger scale? So I put out a survey, and the answer that came back was a resounding yes. We need female-only spaces in order to discuss the challenges we face and work on solutions together. So I put together a 3-phase plan for Bloom Scotland. Phase 1, create a supportive, collaborative, female-only community and run events around personal development and breaking down barriers. Phase 2, industry engagement. Work on specific issues that are preventing women from reaching their potential and engage with the industry to effect change. Phase 3, put Scotland on the world stage as a place where game-changing marketing is happening, with women at the forefront. The first year has largely been Phase 1, and we're just kicking off our first Phase 2 campaign, tackling the issues around returning from parental leave. We ran a panel event and have created a Champions of Parental Leave working group who are leading this piece of work. So, what are you doing to make a more fair, equal and diverse advertising industry that shows the world that we see them? In the words of Emenike, it's over to you.